And are you taking responsibility? People don't have faith that access has been given against the law.
Well, again, President Trump and his family and employees of the Trump organization, 400,000 people, had their tax returns stolen at the IRS.
You are in charge. What are you doing to prevent that?
And
Americans' people's sensitive information has been leaked outside.
Congress, Suzan a 20-year technology executive, former Microsoft corporate vice president, and former director of the Washington State Department of Revenue, just confronted Scott Bessent over one of the most alarming data breaches in government history. On January 31st, 2025, Bessent personally granted Elon Musk's Doge access to the Treasury payment system, housing Americans' social security numbers and bank account information. A government audit found a Doge employee was granted access to create, modify, and delete data from that system. Another staffer emailed an unencrypted file of Americans' payment information to outside personnel. No discipline followed. Delben, who ran a state revenue agency and spent 2 decades in tech, asks the only question that matters. Do you take responsibility? Bessent dodges. He never says yes. Watch this. If you want to support the channel and get exclusive videos, kindly hit the join button below. That's how we keep this going.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. Last year, one of President Trump's first actions was to put his billionaire donor, Elon Musk, in charge of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. By the end of Musk's short but destructive tenure, Doge had nearly quadrupled its original budget, lost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in estimated interest and fee revenue, and paid 200,000 federal employees roughly $22 billion to stop working. Doge was a massive failure. It turns out moving fast and breaking things and having no clue what the heck you're doing is not the most efficient way to govern. Unfortunately, Doge's destruction wasn't limited to wasting taxpayer dollars and gutting the federal service. Doge staffers also abused their position to gain access to taxpayers' sensitive private data. Mr. Secretary, on January 31st, 2025, you personally granted Doge access to one of the Treasury Department's payment systems at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service. This database houses Americans' most sensitive data, including Social Security numbers and bank account information. Shortly after, my colleagues and I requested the GAO review Doge's unprecedented access to this critical payment system. GAO completed that report last month, and I asked for unanimous consent to insert it in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. GAO's audit determined that a Doge employee was inadvertently granted temporary access to create, modify, and delete data from the payment system. Mr. Secretary, you failed to impose basic safeguards that left millions of Americans' personal data vulnerable to unauthorized access and abuse. And so my question for you is, do you take responsibility for that? And what specific measures, if any, have you taken afterwards to protect the affected individual's data and rebuild confidence in your department's handling of sensitive information?
Again, would you care to look up what does inadvertent mean?
Have you taken, but you're in charge. You're responsible for this. Do you take responsibility for that? Do you take responsibility?
I will take responsibility.
Okay, and then
and again,
what has been done to make sure that can never happen again?
Congresswoman, it was read-only. They had no ability to edit.
What has happened to make sure that never happens again?
We have, just as we have at the IRS, we have tightened up all protocols on systems.
I guess that's not very specific, but the GAO also found that a Doge staffer sent an unencrypted file containing USAID payment information and individuals' names to external Doge personnel at the General Services Administration. Soon after, it was reported no disciplinary action was taken, despite the employee's failure to protect federal and non-federal employees' sensitive personal data and comply with security requirements. So again, Mr. Secretary, when employees who violate IT security rules are not held accountable, what does that message send to agents? Why don't you hold someone accountable?
Why are you bringing up USAID with me?
Because a Doge staffer, GAO found that a Doge had payment information payment information.
USAID, I do not oversee. I wear many hats in this administration, not one.
And this is still, this is a file containing payment information. Are you not in charge also of the Treasury?
That has USAID. That has nothing to do with us.
But payment information has nothing to do with it.
Again, it was not sourced at the Treasury. Why are you bringing this up with me?
So GAO provided 6 recommendations to address identified weaknesses, including ensuring staff agree to comply with IT security rules and configuring systems to detect and prevent the transmission of unencrypted payment data. The report states that the fiscal service, again, the fiscal service, part of your agency agreed that 3 of the recommendations, or agreed with 3 of the recommendations and did not state whether it agreed or disagreed with the other 3. So, Mr. Secretary, can you confirm Treasury's position? This is part of your purview, that Treasury's position on all 6 recommendations. And if you agree that they're warranted, please let us know. And if you disagree with the recommendations, please explain why.
Again, I don't have a copy of the recommendations in front of me. Your office did not share them in advance. We'd be happy to get back to you that we would obviously agree with the ones where we've already agreed.
So I hope that you understand that these are findings from the GAO about ensuring that information is protected. And again, we have seen access to taxpayer information leaks. What are you doing to address this? And are you taking responsibility? People don't have faith that access has been given against the law.
Well, again, President Trump and his family and employees of the Trump organization, 400,000 people had their tax returns stolen at the IRS.
You are in charge. What are you doing to prevent that?
Americans'
people's sensitive information has been leaked outside.
Bill Benny, your time has expired.
We have tightened the protocols. We have tightened access.
And you've said nothing specific of what you've done to
Ms.
ensure.
Del Benny, your time has expired. Mr. Estes is recognized.
During your tenure as Treasury Secretary, has the IRS recommended that any taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit for their taxes?
Again, one portion of that is under litigation, so I'm not able to.
Yes, sir. It isn't a question of being not able, it's being not want to. But my question is about...
As I said,
thank you, sir.
There is litigation.
Reserving my time, my question to you again is...
Definition of insanity,
in the
sir.
ordinary practice of the Treasury Department, has there ever been a recommendation that a taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Same question. Has the IRS recommended that any taxpayer be granted immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Again, I'm unable to answer that.
You can answer it. You refuse to answer. Can you tell the American people, in the history of the Treasury Department, has there ever been a taxpayer who's been recommended to have immunity from an audit of their taxes?
Has there ever been a taxpayer who had his tax returns released, his family, and every employee?
So I'll take that as a no. Let me ask you, sir, since you say you're relying
to the president.
Thank you. I reserve
all his employees today.
Maintaining my time, and since you refuse to answer, let me ask you, since you say you're following the advice of the Attorney General, the former criminal defense attorney for Mr. Trump, as you know, the Attorney General cannot compromise a tax dispute unless it's referred to him from the IRS for prosecution or defense. Have you ever been involved in any way in a decision to refer a tax dispute to the Attorney General?
Again, I cannot comment on that.
You can't comment. Your argument here that you can't comment in this case makes as much sense as President Trump saying that he cannot. I understand you want to talk over me, but you're not answering the question, because you may have defined insanity by referring to Einstein, but your appearance here today and yesterday in the Senate defines deception, and that's what you're doing to the American people. Isn't it correct, sir, that the financial management service within the Treasury Department must give approval before any payment can be made from the judgment fund?
Sir, we administer the payments.
Yes, sir. You give approval to it? And
no, sir. We administer them.
You make a sign-off on them being...
We administer them, just like if you tell your bank to wire money.
Did Brian...
Bank does not say, do not pay, you shouldn't pay your Visa bill.
Did Brian Morrissey, who had been only confirmed by the Senate a few months earlier as Treasury General Counsel, do a good job for you? Can you answer that just with a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, he did. And as you know, he abruptly resigned rather than be associated with the seedy Trump slush fund deal and didn't sign off on anything. Can you pledge to the committee? I'm asking you a question, sir, if you'd listen to it. Can you pledge to the committee that you will assure that no retaliation occurs against the career IRS employees who wrote the 25-page memo asking the Department of Justice to halt action on this outrageous audit immunity deal?
Sir, we follow the law.
Okay, well, will you follow the law and assuring the committee that you won't retaliate against those courageous career employees?
We always follow the law.
What's involved here, sir, is the most corrupt deal in American history. Truly incredible that a president of the United States could come in and sue the people of the United States for $10 billion and then walk off with an immunity deal that no other American has ever had, nor could they receive, and to get that immunity deal from his former criminal defense attorney, who he has appointed as acting attorney general. This is the kind of corruption that would permit the Trump family, if the Wall Street Journal is correct, that Trump earned $5 billion from his crypto bills last year, to pay him or not pay him as he feels it's smart to do. He made no complaint about the audits in his petition, and yet suddenly out of nowhere, he's granted immunity in what some have said in a report would be $100,000 benefit, $100 million benefit to him. You know that there is a responsibility of your department to do audits of the president every year. A report of this committee indicates that only one was begun during the first term. What are you doing to assure that those annual audits occur this year? The first term, 3 years, nothing. Has anything been done this year to fulfill that responsibility?
Again, sir, due to IRS...
I'm not talking about...
IRS Rule 6103, which prohibits the discussion of taxpayer information.
It doesn't...
This is how we got there with Mr. Littlejohn.
Yes, sir. It doesn't prohibit you indicating what you are doing to assure complicity with the law and with the practice, long-standing practice of the Internal Revenue Service. So I think we can assume from your deception today that nothing's being done, and this president is being treated in a way that no other president, no other American citizen has ever been treated. I would agree with that, sir. An incredibly corrupt deal.
I would agree he is being treated the way no other person has ever been treated.
Let's be absolutely clear about what Suzan Delben just exposed. The Treasury Secretary of the United States personally handed an unaccountable team of political operatives access to the most sensitive financial database the federal government maintains. And when a government audit confirmed that access put millions of Americans' data at risk, he refused to take responsibility for it. And then before Congress, she served as director of the Washington State Department of Revenue, meaning she has personally been responsible for safeguarding the tax and financial data of millions of people. On the House Ways and Means Committee, she now sits on the Oversight Subcommittee. There is perhaps no member of Congress better equipped to evaluate a Treasury data breach than Delben. The story she lays out is genuinely alarming. Last year, one of Trump's first actions was to put his billionaire donor Elon Musk in charge of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. By the end of Musk's short tenure, DOGE had nearly quadrupled its original budget, lost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars in estimated interest and fee revenue, and paid roughly 200,000 federal employees about $22 billion to stop working. As Delben puts it, moving fast and breaking things while having no idea what you're doing is not an efficient way to govern. But the financial waste wasn't the worst of it. The deeper danger was data. On January 31st, 2025, Bessent personally granted DOGE access to one of the Treasury Department's payment systems at the Bureau of the Fiscal Service, a database that houses Americans' most sensitive information, including Social Security numbers and bank account details. After Delben and her colleagues requested that the Government Accountability Office review this unprecedented access, the GAO completed its report, which she entered into the hearing record. The findings are damning. The GAO determined that a DOGE employee was inadvertently granted temporary access to create, modify, and delete data from the payment system. Read that again, not just read the data, but create, modify, and delete it. the most sensitive financial plumbing in the federal government, with edit and deletion privileges handed to a political operative. Delbenny's question is direct and unavoidable. Do you take responsibility for that? And what specific measures were taken afterward to protect the affected individuals and rebuild confidence? Bessent's response is a case study in evasion. He retreats to semantics, challenging her on the word inadvertent, insisting the access was read-only, claiming Congress wanted it. Delben cuts through it because the GAO report contradicts his characterization, and because the question isn't about the technical scope, it's about accountability. She asks repeatedly, "Do you take responsibility?" He never says yes. When pressed on what's been done to prevent a recurrence, he offers only that protocols have been tightened, with no specifics, no detail, nothing a person who has actually managed data systems would accept as a real answer. Then Delbenny raises the second breach. The GAO also found that a DOJ staffer sent an unencrypted file containing payment information and individuals' names to external personnel at the General Services Administration. No disciplinary action was taken. Delbenny's point lands hard. When employees who violate IT security rules face no consequences, what message does that send? Bessent's deflection is to claim the file involved USAID, which he says he doesn't oversee. But Delben catches the dodge immediately. The file contained payment information, and payment systems are Treasury's responsibility. He can't wave it away by pointing at another agency. The GAO issued 6 specific recommendations to fix the identified weaknesses, including ensuring staff actually agree to comply with IT security rules and configuring systems to detect and prevent the transmission of unencrypted payment data. The Fiscal Service, part of Bessent's own department, agreed with 3 of the recommendations and didn't state a position on the other 3. Delben asks Bessent to confirm Treasury